Wow, wow. Whoever took the over, congratulations. 517,000. 517,000 non-farm payrolls, a blast off of a number. That's the highest number since February of 22 when it was 714,000. If you look at manufacturing payrolls, they were 19,000, 3 times expectations. Unemployment rate, 3.4. We crashed the half-century barrier, a new post-cycle low. That is unreal when you think about it. And average hourly earnings month over month up 0.3, which matches last month, which matches October, which matches August, which matches April. We've had a lot of 0.3. That's pretty much the low water mark until you get to March, where it was only up 0.1. In January, that's 21. In January 21, when it was unchanged. If you look at year over year, a bit of a different story. 4.4%, not too bad, sequentially at least for the moment, following 4.6. And when you look at 4.4% on average hourly earnings, that actually is the lightest going all the way back to August of 21. August of 21, where it was 4.3. If you look at the work week came in at 34.7. 34.3 is the low water mark. 34.7 actually ramps us up to the highest since February of last year. That is a big jump, something to pay attention to. And finally, labor force participation rate, also pretty good news, 62.4. 62.4 actually equals the high water mark, which was March at 62.4. That's really good news.
The January jobs report was just released, and whereas it was predicted that about 188,000 jobs would be added, the U.S. economy instead added a staggering 517,000 jobs, bringing the total jobs added in the first 2 years of Biden's presidency to 12.1 million. Not only the most jobs ever added in the first 2 years of a presidential term, but more jobs than have been added even in a 4-year term, meaning that in just 2 years, Biden did what no other president could do in 4. Of those 12.1 million jobs, 800,000 were manufacturing jobs, spurred by legislation passed by Democrats to bring jobs back to America. And companies have responded with an avalanche of investment, including companies like Toyota, First Solar, Sparks, Corning, LG, Honda, Micron, Qualcomm, and Intel, just to name a few. Just those companies alone will be responsible for investments of hundreds of billions of dollars and tens of thousands of new jobs. Kind of crazy what happens when you prioritize renewable energy and green jobs over protecting the dwindling 59,000 jobs left in coal. Almost like doing the bidding of fossil fuel companies only actually helps the bottom lines of those politicians in their re-election campaigns, and not the actual people who live in this country. And for those who say, yeah, well, those are just jobs coming back that were lost during the pandemic, which was true up until August 2022, when all 22 million jobs lost during COVID actually came back. The jobs added after August 2022 have been in addition to the jobs lost, meaning despite Republicans' best efforts to undermine this accomplishment, the simple fact is that the economy is operating at historic strength. With this influx of jobs is an unemployment rate of 3.4%. It hasn't hit that number in the 2010s or 2000s or 1980s or 1970s. The last time that it was that low was in 1969, before we even landed on the moon. For comparison, the lowest unemployment rate under Trump was 3.5%. In fact, Trump came into office with a 4.7% unemployment rate, meaning he got it down about 25% at its best point. Biden came into office with a 6.2% unemployment rate, meaning he got it down 45%, almost double what Trump did in half the time. The Black and Hispanic unemployment is also near record lows at 5.4% and 4.5% respectively, meaning this is an economy that's working from the bottom up, not the top down, for everyone. Remember, trickle down is the make-believe phrase that Republicans use to trick people into thinking that giving millionaires and billionaires a tax break will somehow help the rest of America, as opposed to the reality, which is that it only helps millionaires and billionaires. If you don't believe me, take a look at this chart that shows the gap in income inequality over the past decade. Let me know if you can pinpoint the moment that the rich ran away with the lion's share of wealth in this country. Yup. 1980, right when Ronald Reagan took office, brought the top marginal tax rate down from 71% to 28%, introduced the concept of trickle-down economics, and created a permanent underclass incapable of growing wealth that persists to this day. So the next time a Republican pretends to be a populist, you should ask why the actual policies they support only serve the ultra-rich. As for the worries about the economy, consider the fact that annual inflation fell for the last 6 months to the lowest rate in more than a year, with the latest headline CPI rate at negative 0.1%. All the while, the economy continues to surge, with GDP growing at 2.9% last quarter. We've had the strongest 2 years for small business applications on record, with 10.5 million new businesses created. And real wages are higher than they were 7 months ago, with wages up 4.4% in the past year. Again, the difference when you invest in the economy from the bottom up versus the top down could not be more apparent. America is more than just a few billionaires and millionaires, and this recovery is as clear proof of that as you could possibly find. But despite this proven success, still Republicans are moving full speed ahead to undermine this progress. Their economic plan is largely under wraps, but from what we do know, they're looking to do, quote, spending reform.
When the White House said that the president's open to talking about the debt ceiling and a separate discussion about ways to control spending. I mean, what do you think about when you hear that they kind of want to separate those two, is what they say?
Whichever way they want to talk about it, I'm very clear. We will not pass a clean debt ceiling here without some form of spending reform. So there'll never be a clean one. I don't know how they want to say it, that's fine. But at the end of the day, we're going to get spending reforms. I believe you have to lift the debt ceiling. But you do not lift the debt ceiling without changing your behavior. So it's got to be both in front. Yes, sir.
So what does spending reform actually mean in practice? Well, that's anyone's guess because they refuse to actually tell us, but it sure does sound awfully similar to entitlement reform, which has been their call to arms for decades. Republicans have been chomping at the bit to eliminate Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid for years because they view your earned benefits as welfare. And as we all know, welfare is only allowed for billion-dollar corporations. But that's not the only horrific policy position they've been pushing for. They've also introduced the Fair Tax Act, which would eliminate the IRS, all personal and corporate income taxes, the inheritance tax, the payroll tax, and all of that would be replaced by a 30% national sales tax, which would be a gift to the wealthy. Because instead of collecting income tax commensurate with your income, which for the wealthy is a lot, instead they'll just slap a flat tax on all items, which means every time you buy a shirt, a meal, a roll of toilet paper, it'll cost 30% more. And so now it's not the wealthy being taxed based on their income, which is disproportionately higher than everyone else's, it's everyone else, the working class, that carries the brunt of the tax burden. Because for the umpteenth time, Republicans do not care about you if you are not a millionaire. They've seen how an economy focused on the working class can succeed, and their plan is to do the polar opposite. And by the way, think about the effects of a law like this one Republicans are pushing. Think about the impact of absolutely gutting our tax revenues. Our deficit would explode, which means it would be impossible to shrink our national debt. And so even though Republicans cry about the debt on an endless loop when a Democrat is in office, they waste exactly 0 time trying to increase it even more because they don't care that what they say and what they actually do aren't even on the same planet. Aside from handouts to millionaires and billionaires, their governing philosophy is just abject shamelessness. And here's the most incredible part. While all of this was happening, Republicans have been screaming recession on an endless loop. Why? Not because there is one, clearly, considering I wouldn't exactly call the lowest unemployment rate in more than half a century a recession, but because they want one. They want to have a weak economy because hurting Democrats is more important than helping Americans. And so now, the same people who praised Donald Trump's 6% unemployment rate are pretending that Joe Biden's 3.4% unemployment rate is some national failure. These people don't traffic in reality, they traffic in delusion, all the while protecting the donor class over the working class every step of the way. Before you go, if you enjoyed this video and want to see more, please make sure to subscribe to my channel. You can click the thumbnail right here on this screen. And if you want to support my work even further, the best way is to subscribe to my podcast, No Lie with Brian Tyler Cohen. There you can check out my interviews with major players in the world of politics, including President Biden, Vice President Kamala Harris, Pete Buttigieg, Elizabeth Warren, Katie Porter, Jamie Raskin, and so many more. Plus other interviews that live exclusively on the podcast. That link is also right here on this screen, or just search No Lie with Brian Tyler Cohen wherever you listen to podcasts.